Hello, everybody. We're going to be creating an Azure Devops pipeline and some additional steps to go ahead and do a proper deployment. So first off, the DevOps pipeline is basically a way to test and deploy things before you go ahead and put everything into production. So you can validate things before you go and do live deployment to make sure that everything works. Then we're going to be going ahead and setting up a service connection to GitHub to grab code so that we can deploy the code using our Azure DevOps pipeline. And we're going to be using a self-hosted agent, setting up the YAML file, and then we're going to be giving the service connection over to the Azure DevOps pipeline some permissions to a specific Azure subscription so we can go ahead and do a deployment. So without further ado, we're going to be checking out this file later. So we're going to head over here to project settings, GitHub connections. Sorry, this is going to be for the actual boards, not the GitHub connection for the actual repo itself. So we're going to click new service connection, and we're going to click GitHub, click the OAuth connection, and you can either use grant authorization or personal access token. It's going to go ahead and give you the one that you're connected to at the moment. So this one is my personal repo, so I am going to head over to GitHub so that I can grab the token. Okay, so we're going to head over to this repo. Going to click change. Regardless, we have the Cyber Career Academy here, and let's just do another one here to my personal. Okay, save. We'll go and delete this one. New service connection, GitHub, authorize. I'll put Git Chris Felix 162. And there you are. So what that will look like over here is head over to settings, applications, and you'll see it right here, install GitHub apps, Azure pipelines. So we're going to go to here, and I have it connected here. So we will see the settings for the organization, and it's going to be a similar thing. Third-party application access policy is going to be here, Azure pipelines. And then, of course, you can change the restrictions using PAT or specific permissions. Okay, so now that we've connected that here, we are going to go to setting up a self-hosted agent. So when we set up a pipeline, I'm going to create a new one. You can do GitHub, and I have a few here, a few different repositories, and I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one, starter pipeline. Okay, let's head over to the pipelines blade over here and click new pipeline. We're going to select GitHub because we're connecting to a GitHub repo. I'm going to select the one you want. In my case, it's going to be all repositories because it's an organization. And we're going to use an existing one, which I'll be giving you guys an overview of. So we're going to select the main branch, or if you have another branch, we'll select that. And the path to it is going to be this YML file. So we have a few tests before we do a deployment, as well as a default pool here, and some variables which are being plugged in down here. The first thing I want you guys to do is go ahead and Google this over here. Run ARM TK tests, which will be needed to go ahead and deploy this. It's not automatically deployed, so click Get It Free. And the point of this, remember, is to test all your files to see if everything is working properly. And you guys can take this from my end so that you can use for your own. Now, one thing that I am doing is I am not using the Azure provided agent pools. I am using my own pool because I'm still waiting on this Azure Devops parallelism request. So if you guys are willing to wait the 2 to 3 days for that to fill out, this will allow you to use your Azure DevOps pipeline and deploy using their agents. Or you can install your own agent pool on your own personal desktop, which is going to be a little bit more involved. So we have a self-hosted pool. Click agent pools, and we see that we have a default value, and my own agent here is this host, which is deployed here. Now we're going to go back to our pipeline, click edit. Going back to the test, here's some of the steps and stages. The first thing we are going to fill out is the pipeline name. The trigger, we've put none, so meaning there's nothing that's going to trigger it. Variables, which are used down here, which are defined here: location, template file, and parameters file, which are all going to be located over here. Now, because we're using an operating system, it's going to look in the system default working directory to find the files and then the relative path. So we know that we have the relative path over here, Azure Virtual Desktop, and then we have a pipelines AVD lab, and this folder structure is being used within it to define where to look within the computer we're using to deploy everything. So we're not using the default pool, but if we were, we would type in server. Sorry, we're not. Oh, we are using the default pool. We're not using the Azure pipelines, which would be defined as server. We do have a hosted agent here. and we would use this if we needed to. Now there's additional um, properties we can use if we wanted to define which type of operating system we wanted to use. For example, I'm gonna go up, get ahead and go to the timeline. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're gonna go ahead and put default. So next up, we have the different stages, which is pre-deploy, scan and what if, using which pool. So this whole stage is being defined as pre-deploy. Okay, so this stage has this step in it. And if you want to take a look at what properties you can use within this, run Azure RM TTK tests. You can go ahead and select the settings within the Azure Devops portal, and then define the different parameters you want to go ahead and use within it. So then these published test results are going to head over here as an XML file. And then we're going to preview the bicep changes using the what if command. So this will basically give you a heads up of what everything's going to look like before you deploy everything. Now, when we go ahead and deploy this, make sure that the agent you're using has the specific things that you need in order to deploy it. Typically, when you have a hosted agent, it's going to have an Ubuntu or a Windows Server VM. You can either use Bash or PowerShell. In this sense, it is type PowerShell. You can go ahead and click Bash or Shell, and then this shouldn't overwrite it, but let's click Add just so you guys can see what this looks like. And you see it says Bash, and it would be defined here. So that's a neat thing about this is you can always just put different stages and tasks within it before you deploy to make sure that everything's working good. So this is using a what if. And then finally, once it passes all these stages, it'll wait for a manual validation right here. And this is the second stage, which is to actually deploy the bicep file. And we've put about a day to timeout. And then it will send you an email message once it's ready to go. And once you click that, it'll go ahead and deploy, which is this job here. And finally, we'll deploy to Bicep to Azure using this Azure subscription. So how you're gonna put this in here is we're gonna go to project settings. I believe it's service connections. Yes, okay. So you go to service connections, and we are gonna go to portal azure.com. You click new service connection, Azure Resource Manager, Service Principal Manual. Actually, I think we can do automatic. Okay, so see, it's loading all the subscriptions. It's able to grab the different subscription IDs over there. So now it's going to go ahead and log in for you. Click next. Give us a little 2FA action here. Okay. And then you're going to go and select the name. We can do AVD Lab if you'd like. And then you can select this. This is just for the sake of this tutorial. Of course, access of least privilege is recommended on all things. I've also limited it to the entire subscription. You can do management group or subscription. For the sake of this, we're just going to do the Azure Lab subscription, and it will be called AVD Lab. Now, we are going to be giving this service connection permissions to do deployments. So, for the sake of this tutorial, we have given the service connection some wide open permissions. Now, of course, please do your own due diligence and create your own permissions. But let's go ahead and go to here, and the most recently created enterprise connection application will be show up right here under created on. So we go to home, Microsoft Entra ID, enterprise applications, click all applications, click created on twice so that we get the most recently created object. And we can go ahead and create, copy this application ID. Head over to the subscription you want to give access. Access control IAM. We can click here for another application that I've given access to. So you see I have owner permissions here, as well as user access administrator for myself. You might need additional if you're going to be doing if you're going to be giving permissions to write permissions, you're going to need this permission here. So you're going to add role assignment, privileged administrator roles, owner, next, select members, and that's not it. Why is it not it? Maybe the application ID or another one. Identities in Azure is very convoluted, so my apologies here. Okay. We might be able to do it by name actually. So let's try that. Perfect. Four. see if there's a different name. Okay, looks like I've created the same name. So little confusion there. Okay, no big deal. I'll add both. Click select. Next. We can do this here. That way it's the least privilege here. Condition. Okay. And we've assigned the condition of except for privileged administrator roles. Okay. And then we'll also give user access administrator. And that's another privileged one, user access administrator. And of course, put in the name of the enterprise application again. Next. And then the same one. Okay, now we have given that service connection additional privileges to do deployments, which is under AVD Lab. So I have two created. I have Azure Labs and then the subscription ID and then AVD Lab. So when you head over to your pipeline, you're going to see the preview bicep changes. This Azure subscription is basically saying, hey, what service connection do you want to use in order to deploy this? So what you do is, where are you? You can copy this name and plug it in here. So that's what the Azure subscription will be. And you're going to have to place that also in the actual deployment portion of it. So in this case, we can do AVD Labs, and that will be the same thing as here. So AVD Lab. Okay. Now to set up your agent pool, if you would like to do this on your end, agent pools, then click default, then click new agent, and then depending on which operating system you're using, you're gonna have to run these commands. Once you run these commands, so you click download, go to your C drive, add this here, and then you configure the agent using the detailed instructions over here. The first thing you're going to want to do is head over to user settings, personal access tokens. You can click new token, AVD agent pool. You can click full access if you want to give it all permissions, and then of course you can make it expire after a certain time. Just in case, I am a little bit concerned one of you guys want to steal this code, so I will make this um, expire tomorrow. Click create, copy the PAT, personal access token, and we've already defined the agent pool. So we click in here. Let's go to the C drive. Okay, you'll get something like this. I've already run this. You may see something different. And then you're going to need that personal access token. And then go ahead and go into your services.msc. And then once it's running, go ahead and start that up. And then after that, depending on what programs you have on your application, you're going to go to the Windows Store or whatever you need. And I'm actually using WSL. So I need a distribution to use WSL. So I went to the Windows Store and installed 2204 LTS Ubuntu. And you can type in bash. And there you have, we have a 2204 LTS Ubuntu to go ahead and use our Azure Devops pipelines. Okay, so once you have that set up, you're going to head over to, well, the agent pools, and you'll see that your own agent is right here, which we can now use to deploy scripts. Okay, so now we have this repository to deploy. And then we click run pipeline. And let's head over here to the Azure Labs, resource groups. It's sitting in here. Okay. So we have nothing in here as of yet. We're going to go ahead and run that DevOps pipeline over here. And now it's going through all the different files to see if everything is working properly. And you see it's giving us different errors on our thing so that we can go ahead and clean that up. So these things we can go ahead and either ignore or go ahead and fix up so that we don't get so many errors. You can see here we have a lot of errors on my VM module. And a few of these did failed tests. Okay. Now this Azure DevOps pipeline is actually using my computer that I'm shooting this video on to do the deployment. So it's important that you have all the different scripts and other deployment like PowerShell to go ahead and deploy everything. So I'm going to click exit. You're going to need AZ as well as Bicep. So we have AZ, so we can do install AZCLI. Head over here. Can install this here or using PowerShell. Using this MSI file. This should give you what you need. And then you'll need to install Azure Bicep using AZ Bicep install. Okay, so now we are gonna head over here, check out the what if. So you see here it's using the what if command. So what that looks like in practice, we can take a look at here. And it's using a specific command that we input over in the Azure DevOps steps. And then here's all the different resources that will be created. Okay. Okay. So once we think everything looks good, we can go ahead and view and deploy. So let's click review, and we're going to click resume. And this will trigger it so that we can deploy over to Azure. So we can see that in action over here under deployments. Let's watch it over here. Similar action to the what if because it's kind of using the AZ deployment. giving us some errors here. Okay, should be having that here soon. And there you go, we have the main file. Perfect. So now, I know some of you would prefer to um, name your deployment. You can always change that up, doing the dash dash name and something like some kind of variable over here. Let's just go and pick a deployment name. Let's do AZ Labs. Today's date is 06/24. Deployment name. And then validate and save. Okay. We still have this running. If we take a look at the parameter file, if you're looking in the repo, it is taking this parameter file in the base Azure Virtual Desktop folder and using the main.bicep file to go ahead and deploy here. All right. And then we can see over here in Azure Virtual Desktop, we have a host pool, workspaces, application groups, and by default, I did turn off the permissions here, just so we don't get a failed deployment. So we'll be right back while this is deploying. All right, let's go ahead and check out the results. We have the virtual machine over here, and a few extensions which are a part of it. And we're going to head over to the host pools. So it does look like I had a parameter that was incorrect. So I'm going to change that parameter, push it up so that the AVD agent deploys properly. And then we're going to head back to the pipelines. We're going to click, go ahead and skip the pre-deploy. We're going to click Run New. And we're only going to do the deploy by step stage because we don't need the pre-deploy. We already checked out the what if. And then let's click Run. We only need to click Resume. And then we wait while this deploys again. We'll be right back. And now you see that the deployment name is under the variable name of deployment name. So it's AZ Labs 06/24. And this should just show OK because we've already deployed it. Should skip through all that. And then we'll get to the fun stuff with the VM. We'll just go to wait, take a look at the VM over here. The extension is already getting pushed up. Microsoft PowerShell DSC. And we should see some action over here in the host pools under total machines. Once this grabs the host pool token, and it should show right here. We'll be right back. Now, one thing that I mentioned was the manual validation, and it does notify the users to go ahead and check out the pipeline. And you see Cyber Career Academy repository. That's the name of the pipeline. It's deploying this pipeline number, deployed biceps 34, and it's waiting for review validation. This was sent directly to Gmail. Okay, looks like we had an issue over on the extension. We're still getting some domain check failures here. So what we did is, in the past, I've run into issues if we've deployed a virtual machine with the same name more than once. We have gotten some issues, so I'm gonna go and change the name here just so we get a clean deployment. I've named it AVD Lab. So name update. And then we did get a clean deployment here. We're going to run new and go and skip that pre-deploy stage again. And run it again. And it seems that I got an error with the virtual machine name being too long. So we're going to change that up right here. AVD Lab. Remove the hyphens, excuse me. Save that and push that up. Run this again. I'll be right back again. Alright, as you can see, we went ahead and deployed that. It was successful. And the only variable that we've changed here was the name. And that seems like it worked. So keep in mind, guys, if you deploy a VM under the same name, you might have an issue like I did. So go ahead and change that. And now we can see the changes here. And we're going to go ahead and delete the rest of this. Okay. All right. Keep in mind, guys, a little recap of the YML file. There are some variables here that we defined. The pool, which is grabbed from the pool agent name over here. We've defined the pre-deploy stage with the following jobs, which is scan what if, and the step is to run this extension, which will scan the working directory, and then next up it will publish the test results, and then last we're going to be running a what if on this the files, and then last is the stage deploy, which will be a manual validation. And then once it's ready to go, it'll notify you, and then you go and click that review button and click accept. Then it will do a deploy job with these steps, which is a azcli inline command of az deployment with the variables that we've defined up there. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave something in the comment. Like, comment, subscribe, guys. Thanks again.